So we're from Boot Up Baltimore at Johns Hopkins, and our goal is to educate people on technology as well as help people out by getting computers that normally would have been thrown out. We fix them up and then we return them to the community, whether it's through schools, churches, nonprofits, the rec center, other community places where they'll be used by as many people as possible. So these computers that are set up behind you are ones that we've worked on, and we have gotten them donated to us. We opened them up, cleaned them out, and refurbish them. I'll let these guys talk a little bit more about the refurbishment process. And then after that, we'll actually show you guys how we image the software on the computers, just to kind of gauge how much you know already. If I said hard drive image, do you know what that means? No? No? Okay.
I'm a programmer.
Okay. So you guys are all programmers?
Yeah, I'm a DJ.
DJ, okay. What about you? Programmer? Programmer. Okay, cool. That's fine. So I'll let these guys talk about our refurbishment process, and then I'll go into the nitty-gritty with the hard drive stuff.
We're actually programmers too, but we
Yeah.
Alright.
I'm a hardware guy, they're the programmers.
Yeah, and more software stuff.
Yeah, so when we get computers donated, we put it into our system, we record, basically, we look inside and we see how big is a hard drive in there if it has one, how much memory it has, and then basically anything that's wrong with it, maybe like a broken fan or a broken power supply unit, and then we work with that. Sometimes, most of the time, they're in pretty good condition, and so we basically wipe the whole hard drive, and we have our own Windows installation disks, and we just install Windows and start from scratch. That's the basis of our process, because we get a lot of different types of computers, so we have to work with them on an individual basis, really. Like each one needs different types of drivers to work with the different hardware. But what we did with these computers actually is a little bit different process. You want to talk about the imaging?
Okay, so for the imaging, we start off with one hard drive in which we have Windows XP installed, all the updated drivers and updates and everything like that. And what we do basically is we put a hard drive in here, the good hard drive, we put an empty hard drive. And we use this software called Clonezilla, which basically takes everything on the good hard drive and puts it onto the empty hard drive. And
Literally
so from
bit
there,
for bit.
Yeah, literally bit for bit, byte for byte. So it's an identical copy of the hard drive that we had before. And actually, do we want to give the demonstration now?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and give the demonstration.
Okay.
Just to add on to what Daniel was saying about the imaging, so we often try to get computers in large batches. So you can see these are all the same model computer, and we had actually 50 of these. They're called GX755 model computers. So instead of installing Windows XP 50 times, what we're doing is taking the hard drive and, like you said, bit for bit, almost like a photocopy machine, and running off copies of all the pre-installed software. So you can see the icons there. We have chosen all the software that we want on the computers. It's all free open source software. And instead of sitting there and waiting for it to install and clicking next and everything, I'm sure you're familiar with that. Instead of waiting for that, we do it once, and then like a photocopy, we do drive to drive. The other thing I'll mention is, like a photocopy machine, if you were trying to photocopy a poster onto one of these Post-it notes, it's not going to fit, right? Because unless you shrink it, you're just not going to be able to read it. So what we need to make sure is that the hard drives are the same size, or the destination one is bigger. So I'm gonna walk you through this, and I'll be constantly referring to the source and the destination drive. And the source one is the one inside already, exactly. That one already has Windows XP, it has our programs on it, it has everything. This one out here is the destination drive, and the reason it's sitting outside is because it's only there temporarily. Once we photocopy it, metaphorically, we will remove it and put it into the case of another computer.
Theoretically the same type of computer.
Right, exactly. It has to be the same type. If it's a different hardware configuration and significantly different, it won't work. Yeah, Windows will crash, and it most likely won't even let you get to the desktop at all, and you'll have to reinstall Windows. But that's a trick you can play with having the same model computer, and it's called imaging. So we use the software called Clonezilla. It boots from a CD. Have you guys booted from a CD before? Familiar with that term? So when the computer boots, the first thing it looks for is the hard drive, and that's the hard drive that's already in there. What we're going to do is actually bypass the hard drive that has Windows on it, and we're going to tell the computer to turn on and look for the CD instead of the hard drive. So I'm going to put the CD in, And the screen we have up here is the default in every computer. On the motherboard itself, there's a small operating system called BIOS. Is that something? Yeah, you heard BIOS? Okay. So BIOS is the onboard system that controls basically what gets booted to first, and it controls the keyboard and various other internal things. So we're in BIOS now. We're going to tell it that we want to go to the CD-ROM drive.
Can you guys all see this, by the way?
So the SATA drive is the hard drive, the CD-ROM drive, or if this computer does have a floppy drive, it could boot to a floppy drive, even a USB key. So we'll choose CD, enter. Okay, so this is going to load in Clonezilla. This is the program. Again, everything you see from this point on is on the CD itself. None of it is on the hard drive. And we're going to choose default mode. And it's going to load everything into the computer's RAM. So the way the computer is working is that the RAM only works when the computer's on, and it can store everything that you're doing, what windows you have open, what programs you're running. And what this is doing is copying information from the CD into the computer's RAM so that it can more quickly access the information, and we're pretending that it's on the computer itself. The computer doesn't know the difference. The hard drive still at this point hasn't been touched. Normally, if you were really using your computer for Windows XP, Windows 7, you'd be turning on the hard drive, and the hard drive would be copying information to the RAM, to the memory on the computer.
It has to go through a lot of initial stuff.
Do you have any questions at this point? No?
No, it's a lot.
I want to jump off top of that.
Sure.
How many of y'all ever worked at Geek Squad?
At Geek Squad, I considered it, but from what I understand, you have to be a college graduate to work there. At least that's what they told me.
I've done similar stuff, not Geek Squad, but similar things. Okay, so this is loaded up, and this is a global program, so it gives us a language choice. We'll choose English.
Sweet.
And then it's going to ask us again if we have a different language keyboard. We don't want to touch that. We want to keep the keyboard language that we have. And Clonezilla is free. It can be downloaded off the internet. What you do is you download what's called an ISO file, and that is a file within your operating system that you can burn to a CD. And you turn the computer off, put the CD in like we just did, and then you can boot into that CD. So if you Google search Clonezilla, you can find more information about this program if you're interested. Okay, so we have two choices here. Start Clonezilla. I'll choose Start. And there's two different ways to use Clonezilla. And I'll actually pause here for a second because we use it differently sometimes. The way we're doing it now is we have hard drive, the source hard drive A, and the destination hard drive B. And we're copying directly, bit for bit, from one hard drive to the other. The alternative, it says there, device to image, is when we're dealing with a lot of computers. So we see probably 200 computers in a 3-month span, and we have different models that have different hardware and everything. We want to keep all that information. So we actually have a large server that keeps all of our images in files. And we can rip everything off the hard drive and keep it in a file along with other versions. And then if we want, we can pull it down and burn it to a hard drive. Basically is how it works. So if we wanted to copy it to an image, let's say we don't want to copy it to a second hard drive just yet. We want to store it for later. So with these computers, with the 755s, if we ever get another 755 in the next few months, we already have the image stored on our server, and we can pull it down and burn it to a hard drive. So that's what the device to image does. That's when we're copying it somewhere where we're not going to use it right away. So we'll choose the second one, device to device, because we have both devices here. We know we're going to use both hard drives. And it's going to prepare the hard drives. And there's two different modes. We'll choose beginner mode, and it'll actually step us through the process. So the next one is choosing where the hard drives are. So Clonezilla is actually very powerful. You can image within the same computer, which is what we're doing. You can image on a USB hard drive that's plugged in, or a flash drive if it's large enough. You can put an entire operating system onto a flash drive via USB. So the choices here is if you have a remote disk or even a network disk, which isn't showing up right now. You can image, if we had all these computers plugged into a router and they were all in the same room on the same network, we could image what's on this hard drive and send it over the network to every computer at the same time. It's called multicasting an image, and every computer gets the image. A little bit slower, of course, because there's more than one hard drive being used, but it is possible with Clonezilla. And the other thing here is whether we want, it says disk or part. So disks are broken into partitions. You can have multiple operating systems on your hard drive. If you had Windows and Ubuntu or Mac even, the hard drive would be split into different file systems and different partitions. So that's what this means here. If we didn't want to copy the entire hard drive, let's say we only wanted the Windows part and not the Linux part, not the open source part, we could specifically identify that. We're going to bypass that. We want everything on the hard drive. So I'm going to choose local disk. Okay, this is the tricky part. Like I said before, we have an A and a B. And they're clearly identified here as to what size they are, 80 gigabytes and 120 gigabytes. And I know ahead of time that this one is the 80 gigabyte and this is the 120. This is the step, the reason I said it's tricky is because if they're both the same size, they're both 80 gigabyte hard drives, you have to be very careful which one you're copying to, because you could overwrite what you're trying to write to. So if this one just had gibberish and blank data on it, we tried to copy that onto the real one, we would erase everything on the real one, which is not good. So here we know the sizes ahead of time. And the reason I said A and B is because on the motherboard itself, when you plug in these blue cables here for the hard drives, they on the motherboard it actually says 0 and 1, and that corresponds to A and B. 0A and 1 is B. So we know that this one's B, we know it's 120, and it's asking us to choose the source. Choose local disk as source, and we know that 80 is the source, so we'll hit enter there. And then the target is the destination, and the only other choice is the 120. Press enter to continue.
Are you sure you want to continue?
So this is warning you because we're going to erase everything on this disk here by copying all the information over. And that's a yes. And asking us again to confirm. They really don't want you to erase your own data.
I've actually erased the wrong partition in my computer before. It was a drag. Yeah, not fun.
Yes, this is the bootloader. Okay, I'll explain that in a second. And once again.
There we go.
So this is going to go really quickly. And what it's copying is just the very, very beginning of the hard drive, which tells the rest of the hard drive what's on the hard drive. It's like the header to, or like the title page of a book. It tells you what, a table of contents really, I should say. It tells you what else is in the hard drive. So this is telling the rest of the hard drive that there's one partition with Microsoft Windows on it. And it's going to copy that first. Then you'll see it refresh, and it will start copying the real data from beginning to end. Yep, and you can hear, I don't know if you hear the clicking noise, but this one is spinning now. Yep, and it gives you, so it gives you an estimated time, which is a rough estimate. It also tells you the rate, which is pretty cool to see that you're getting almost 2 gigabytes a minute being copied between the hard drives. Do you guys have any questions at this point?
Well, that's kind of interesting though. Like that, you can actually put like you answer yes or no to the what you wanted to do and stuff. I think that's pretty interesting to do, and I think I would like to do stuff like that.
Cool. Yeah. The whole thing is a program written by programmers. It's an open source program, so it's written by people collaborating from around the world, really. I believe it originated in Japan, and it's been translated into English, luckily. And that's why in the first screen we saw it had all the languages on there.